Have you ever missed someone so much that you'd do anything just to hear their voice one more time? For Arthur, that person was Eleanor, his wife of 50 years. After she passed, the world lost its color, and his days were filled with a profound, echoing silence. He found solace only at the quiet shores of Willow Creek Lake, the place where they had first met, where they had shared countless sunsets, and where he had proposed. It was their sanctuary, the keeper of their shared memories. One crisp autumn afternoon, as golden leaves danced on the water's surface, Arthur felt an overwhelming wave of grief. The silence was deafening. He leaned over the edge of the old wooden dock, his reflection rippling alongside the clouds. He missed her laugh, her gentle scolding, the way she'd say his name. He just wanted to hear her once more. On an impulse, driven by a love that still burned brightly in his heart, he whispered her name into the water. "Eleanor," he breathed, the sound barely disturbing the air. He waited, expecting nothing but the sigh of the wind and the lapping of the water. But then, something impossible happened. A soft, ethereal whisper drifted back from the center of the lake. "Arthur." It was her voice. Unmistakably Eleanor's. His heart leaped into his throat. He froze, every muscle in his body tensing. Couldn't be. He was an old man, his mind playing tricks on him, grief manifesting as auditory hallucinations. That had to be it. He shook his head, trying to clear the cobwebs of sorrow from his mind. It was just the wind, the rustle of leaves, a trick of the acoustics across the water. He tried to dismiss it, to rationalize the experience away, but the memory of that single word, spoken in that beloved voice, haunted him. A week later, he found himself back at the dock, a strange mix of hope and skepticism churning within him. Had to know. Was he losing his mind, or had something truly magical happened? He took a deep breath, his hands trembling slightly, and whispered again, a little louder this time. "Eleanor." And again the response came. "Arthur." It was clearer this time, a gentle echo carried on the breeze. It was so real, so tangible, it brought tears to his eyes. Wasn't imagining it. He couldn't be. But how was this possible? Is it a ghost? An echo? Some bizarre natural phenomenon unique to this very lake? The scientist in him, a part of him that had been dormant for years, began to stir. He needed proof. He needed to understand. His first thought was to bring someone else, a friend, a neighbor, to witness it with him. But he hesitated. How could he explain it without sounding completely unhinged? "Hey, come with me to the lake. I think my dead wife is talking to me through the water." They would think his grief had finally broken him. No, he needed objective, undeniable evidence before he could share this with anyone. That's when the idea struck him. He went home and dug through old boxes in his study until he found it. A high-fidelity digital audio recorder he used to use for his work as a field biologist, capturing bird songs. It was sensitive enough to pick up the faintest of sounds. This would be his unbiased witness. This device would tell him the truth. The next day, Arthur returned to the lake, recorder in hand. He felt a nervous energy he hadn't felt in years. He set up the device on the dock, positioning the microphone carefully towards the center of the lake. He pressed record, a small red light blinking to life. He took a moment, composing himself. Then, with a voice full of love and longing, he spoke her name clearly into the air. "Eleanor." He waited, his breath held tight in his chest. The silence stretched on. 1 second, 2, 5. Disappointment began to creep in. Maybe it was all in his head after all. But then it came. Arthur, soft, loving, and undeniably her. A tear traced a path down his weathered cheek. But this time, it was a tear of joy, not of sorrow. He let the recorder run for another minute before stopping it, his hand shaking as he picked it up. Back in the quiet of his study, he plugged the recorder into his computer. He imported the audio file and opened it in an analysis program. He put on his headphones, his heart pounding. First, he listened to his own voice. The waveforms spiked on the screen. "Eleanor," a clear, deep male voice. Then he listened to the response. The second waveform appeared, smaller, more delicate. "Arthur," a higher-pitched, softer female voice. The software confirmed it. It wasn't an echo. The pitch, the timbre, the frequency, they were completely different. The program analyzed two distinct vocal signatures. One was his, the other, the other was not. It wasn't a trick of the wind or a simple echo. It was another voice. It was her voice. Arthur sat back in his chair, staring at the screen, a slow smile spreading across his face. He wasn't crazy. He wasn't hallucinating. He didn't know how and he didn't know why, but the lake, their lake, had given him a gift. It had given him back her voice. From that day on, the lake became his confidant. He would go there every afternoon, not just to say her name, but to talk to her. He'd tell her about his day, about the funny thing the neighbor's dog did, about the memories that had surfaced. He'd speak, and then he'd wait. And almost every time, a single, loving word would return to him. Arthur. It was never a conversation. It was just one word. But that one word was enough. It was a connection, a reassurance, a bridge across the impossible distance between them. The deep silence in his life was replaced by a comforting presence. He was no longer just an old man mourning his wife. He was a man in conversation with a memory, a man sharing his life with a love that transcended even death itself. He never tried to explain it to anyone else. It was his secret, his and Eleanor's. The lake that held their history now held their continued connection. For Arthur, Willow Creek Lake was no longer just a body of water. It was a place of magic, a keeper of echoes, and the last beautiful chapter of their love story. It was the lake that returned a name, and in doing so, returned a piece of his heart. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe for more.